Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl Mahoney and I blog at marveloustales.com. It's March 29th, 2020, and we are still in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. Everyone I know, certainly in my area, is still trying to do stay at home, don't go out, keep to your house kind of rules. And judging at least by what I see on Facebook, I feel like there's two kind of emerging conversations around this whole situation. One is about how scary it all is, and the other, more positive probably, is about how to declutter your house, or plans for getting more structure into your day, or goals you can pursue while you maybe have a lot more time than you normally do, or at least have very different time in your day if you're trying to stay at home rather than do your usual things. So my book review last week was When Bad Things Happen to Good People by Harold Kushner, which really spoke to the world is scary. I think I said that several times in the video, in fact, and how to have faith in a scary situation. My book review today speaks to the other side. The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin, I think very much fits into this, I have time, maybe I need more structure. What do I do about that? So this is one of my favorite nonfiction books. I read it quite a few years ago. It's not a new book in this moment, but I think it's very relevant in this moment. And it doesn't matter if it's 12 years old, it's still completely applicable. So the concept of this is that Gretchen Rubin set out for a year to have a happiness project and then wrote her book about it. So she wasn't depressed. She wasn't going through something really difficult in her life, not even a pandemic. She felt like her life was actually really good. She just wasn't as happy as she felt she should be for how good she knew her life actually was. And I found that very relatable. I mean, there are other books about dealing with depression, dealing with crisis and trauma, and those are important stories too. But this is something different, where things are good, but it's so easy to let little things in life sort of get in the way of that, the little daily irritations and stresses that we know shouldn't matter that much, but somehow they can really have a big impact in day-to-day happiness. There's a quote in here that she quotes from someone else. I should have looked up who it was. Maybe I'll put some words across the bottom after the video, that says, "What a wonderful life I have had. I only wish I'd realized it sooner." And that's a lot of what this is about, of really embracing your happiness while you can. And I think during a pandemic is a little bit more of a challenging situation. It may not feel like life is good at the moment, potentially, but that doesn't mean there aren't good things, and that doesn't mean there aren't things we can do to try to be a little happier, or at least bring a little more structure into the day as we deal with things. So the way Gretchen went about this is to set a monthly goal to address one aspect of her happiness. You can do it on different timelines if that's what works for you. She really emphasizes that everyone's happiness project is very individual. So, for example, I'm going to talk about hers because that's the book. January, she focused on energy, getting more sleep, eating a little bit better, changing her exercise. Actually, I don't think she did have eating. It just feels like it should have eating because all the other things were that kind of thing. Also decluttering. You see why some of the recent articles made me think of this book. Because, and this is a Gretchen quote that I use all the time in my life, outer order contributes to inner calm. It's so true. I know for myself that if my room is messy or my house is messy, whatever, I don't feel as calm as if I have nice clear surfaces, everything is put away. It's a really tangible, usually pretty fast. I mean, it's like a 5-minute declutter, put things away kind of project, really, each day. I just feel better. I feel like I have more energy. I can think more clearly. It really makes a difference. So that was January. And she set these goals. She had 3 or 4. And she'd actually make charts and check off each day how she did on it. Some people find that really intimidating. I personally love that. That the kinds of ideas about creating projects, creating goals, and then tracking them and having spreadsheets and making it measurable and everything. It's very type A personality, very control oriented, and that speaks to me where I am. So I really valued that aspect of it. As the year goes on, she tries other projects. Energy came first so that she'd have energy to do other things. February, she focused on her marriage. And again, it's not a crisis situation. It's not like they went to marriage counseling to try to repair their marriage. It was small things like nag less, express love more, make sure to kiss every day or more often, like when her husband got home or when he left, that kind of thing. And little things that she could track. While we're talking about her husband, I will say another aspect of the happiness project that she discusses is that you can't do it for someone else. It really has to be your own goals. There's a couple of places where she tries to get something sort of set for their family, but for the most part, they had 2 young children at the time. But for the most part, she's focused on herself. And I think that's important because trying to control other people is just a recipe for frustration. And that's not going to bring us happiness. So other aspects, she started a blog. She's a writer, as you can tell, and she brought in a blog as another component of her job. Other people might want to completely change their career or maybe do something very small like bring a plant to their office. It just is very individual. So as you can see, it's little things, and that's really what I love. Gretchen and I are both very fond of a particular saint, Saint Therese of Lisieux, and she was one of my favorite saints before I ever read the Happiness Project, so I enjoyed that she was being referenced here. If I was going to encapsulate kind of what I've taken from her, what I think was one of the things Gretchen took from her life, is to do little things with great love. That's why I love Saint Therese, in fact, because she didn't do dramatic things. She didn't cast snakes out of Ireland. It wasn't that kind of saint. She lived a very quiet, very retired, cloistered, in fact, she was a nun, life, but she did every little thing in her life with great love, and it makes a big difference. And that's kind of how the Happiness Project works too, of doing little things that cumulatively can make a difference in your life. And that might be a good idea in this moment. So one other aspect I wanted to make sure I addressed was how Gretchen defines happiness, or at least talks about the idea of happiness. She explores a lot of it. Some of it is science, some of it is philosophy. It's all very readable, it's very accessible, but she does kind of explore how this has been defined because it's actually a very slippery concept. But one concept that she ends up discussing is that happiness is about feeling good, feeling bad, or not feeling bad, feeling right, and all of that in an atmosphere of growth. And I found that was helpful to think about as well, because as I was trying to change things in my life, and I am doing a happiness project actually this year, I read this book a couple of months ago, reread it. I read it years ago and did some happiness project stuff then too. I thought about those aspects of things. So small example, like I said, little things. The cabinet under my bathroom sink was a mess, and it made me feel bad every time I opened it because it was frustrating to find anything, when I needed to get something out of there and I felt like I should just clean the darn thing. Haven't done this. So my first month resolution was also energy, especially heavily focused around decluttering my house, outer order. And I cleaned that out. And now I feel so good when I open it because it's all nice and neat and I can find everything, like all the bottles are actually lined up. It's really easy. I removed the feeling bad aspect. I brought in some feeling good, and on some level it even feels right because this feels like it's how it should be. So all of that is something to think about if you wanted to set some goals, if you wanted to do your own happiness project. And like I said somewhere near the beginning, it's very individual. You can set any goals you want. That's sort of the whole idea. It's just little things that you can do in a daily kind of way to make you a little bit happier, to make you appreciate your life a little bit more, to maybe remove some of those little stressors. And I think it especially makes sense when the world is strange and out of control to try something like this that is all about trying to control the little things. Even when we can't always control, we usually can't control the very big things around us. So Gretchen Rubin, The Happiness Project, she is still blogging. I mentioned she started the blog. She's very active on her blog. She also has a podcast now. She's been doing things related to the coronavirus pandemic, so I'd recommend checking it out. She is not paying me for this. By the way, this is not endorsed, but I would recommend Gretchen Rubin and her later books. She did another one about happiness. She did one about habits that was quite interesting. They're all very good. This is my favorite. This is the one I would say certainly read first. And who knows, it might give you some idea of some way you might want to set some goals and appreciate your happiness. So as Gretchen would say, to your happiness, and thank you so much for watching.